Sagittarius, this is scary. What's coming has never happened to anyone. God is waiting in heaven. Beloved wanderer of the stars, there comes a moment in your life when the fire within you dims, not because it's gone, but because something greater is asking to be born. You can feel it now, can't you? A subtle tremor in the fabric of your everyday life. The silence that suddenly feels heavy. The stillness that feels more like a gateway than a pause. This isn't just a prediction. It's a sacred calling. Not to alarm you, but to awaken what's been resting quietly in your soul's deepest chamber. Sagittarius, you are not standing on familiar ground anymore. You've stepped into a rare cosmic alignment, one that no soul has walked through in this way before. What's coming for you has never happened to anyone. Not in this exact way. Not with this intensity. The universe is no longer sending signs. It's opening doors. And the divine is not waiting to judge you, but to give back what has always been yours. Freedom, purpose, and a truth only your soul can carry. So before we go further, breathe. Place your hand on your chest. Feel that gentle ache? That's not fear. It's your wild spirit, ready to be set free again. If you're here, it's not an accident. You were called. So let's walk this path together. And if you feel this message stir something in you, if you know you've been waiting for this kind of moment, then like this video, share it, and subscribe to our Zodiac Wisdom channel. Because this time you won't walk away from your awakening. This time you're going to walk through it, with fire in your eyes and truth in your step. Gate 1, the cracking ground of career and purpose. Sagittarius, your path was never meant to be linear. You were born with fire in your bones and a compass in your heart, always seeking the next horizon, the next truth, the next version of yourself. But lately something has shifted. It's as if the map you've always trusted has vanished from your hands. You wake up, show up, carry on, but somewhere inside the question won't stop echoing. Is this all there is? You've given so much of yourself to a path that once felt like freedom. Perhaps it was a career that promised meaning. A business you believed would set you apart. A mission that lit your eyes with purpose. And for a while it did. But now that fire has cooled. The clarity you once had about your place in the world feels like mist. And though the outer world may still applaud your efforts, inside a quiet rebellion has begun. You're not lazy. You're not confused. You're awakening. You see, Sagittarius, your soul doesn't settle for false purpose. The kind of ambition that's born from survival, not vision. You were never meant to build a life that looks good on paper but starves your spirit in silence. That numbness you've been feeling? That slow ache when you open your laptop or sit through another meeting that drains more than it gives. That is not failure. It's sacred discontent. A divine nudge that says there's something more. Something truer. Something only you can do. I've seen this moment arrive for many Sagittarius souls. CEOs who realized their success was built on someone else's dreams. Teachers who stopped mid-lecture and thought, this isn't what I came here to say. Even spiritual coaches who found themselves repeating truths they no longer felt inside. Each of them faced the same terrifying clarity. The path that once held life has grown silent. And in that silence, the invitation appears. You are being called, not to abandon all you've built, but to become honest about what no longer resonates. Your fire isn't gone. It's just been waiting. Waiting for you to stop performing, to stop pretending, to stop shrinking your truth so it fits inside someone else's expectations of success. You don't need another promotion. You need alignment. Not more tasks, but more meaning. But here's the part no one tells you. Before the new direction comes, the old one must collapse. Sometimes that collapse is quiet. A job offer falling through. A business plan that no longer excites you. A slow erosion of motivation you can't explain. Other times it's brutal, a layoff, a public failure. A financial detour that leaves you gasping. However it arrives, trust this. It's not punishment. It's preparation. The ground must crack for truth to rise. And Sagittarius, you're not lost. You're in transit. You're in that sacred in-between where the past is too small and the future too undefined to grasp. And yet, something in you already knows. A whisper when you close your eyes. A flash of inspiration during the most random moment. The dream you've buried under realistic choices starts to stir again. Says, build something freer. Speak what you actually believe. Create the thing no one else has dared to create. You don't need a 10-year plan. You just need to listen. The new path will not come with guarantees. It may not come with applause, but it will come with peace. You may have to let go of the image others hold of you. You may have to disappoint the version of yourself that once thought security was the goal. But in its place, you will feel alive again. And that aliveness, that wild sense of purpose, is the truest currency you'll ever hold. So I ask you now, not as a voice behind a screen but as a mirror to your spirit. What have you been building that no longer belongs to you? What truth have you been avoiding in order to appear on track? And are you ready to burn that false map? To finally follow your inner compass? Because when you do, Sagittarius, the universe will rise to meet you. Not with comfort but with calling. Not with safety but with truth. And it will be worth every step into the unknown. Gate 2, the quiet ends and unseen goodbyes. Sagittarius, endings have never been your favorite thing. You are the one who runs toward life, not away from it. But life has its own way of shaping even the fiercest spirits. And lately, something in your life, someone, some phase, some long-standing illusion has quietly begun to unravel. There wasn't necessarily a dramatic goodbye. No slammed doors or final words carved in stone. Just silence. Just the absence of something that once filled your days and steadied your heart. And now you find yourself staring into the quiet spaces where there used to be laughter, purpose, connection. You're still functioning, still showing up, responding to messages, moving through your routines. But a part of you feels hollow, detached, like you're walking through your life as a guest, not its owner. You ask yourself, why does this ache so much when nothing seems wrong? Because the most painful losses are the ones that don't come with closure. The ones that slip away while you're still holding on. A friendship that slowly faded without explanation. A relationship that ended emotionally long before it ended in words. A version of yourself that kept compromising until there was nothing left to negotiate. You may not even realize you've been grieving. But grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet recognition that something beautiful has run its course. And no one noticed but you. And Sagittarius, that hurts. It hurts because you believed. You believed in the people you gave your heart to. You believed in the dreams you planted and nurtured. Only to watch them dry up in hands that didn't know how to hold them. You loved in a way only a Sagittarian heart can love. Freely, recklessly, completely. But somewhere along the way, that love became a battlefield of endurance. And you kept showing up long after the light had left. You stayed because hope told you maybe it would return. That if you just kept being the light, others would see. But they didn't. Or couldn't. And you, the eternal optimist, found yourself quietly slipping into a kind of despair your soul had never prepared for. Let me tell you this gently, Sagittarius. Some people will never meet you where you are because they were never meant to stay past a chapter. They were not your forever. They were your threshold. They were the echo that taught you how deeply you could care. And now their absence is teaching you how deeply you can survive. This isn't about blame. It's about truth. It's about finally honoring that the love you gave away so freely wasn't always returned. That your willingness to forgive, to hold space, to give one more chance was beautiful, yes, but also heavy. Too heavy. And in holding that weight, you lost pieces of your own soul. Now comes the moment of reckoning. Not with them. With yourself. Are you willing to admit that you've outgrown certain places, even if they once felt like home? Are you willing to release the memory of what could have been, in order to walk toward what still can be? Because sometimes, Sagittarius, the deepest loyalty we owe isn't to others. It's to our own evolution. There will come a moment when you stop trying to make sense of the silence, and instead listen to what your soul has been trying to say underneath it all. This isn't your fault, but it is your turning point. And when you reach that moment, you will cry not from weakness, but from the sheer release of finally putting down the pain you've carried for too long. You'll cry not for what was lost, but for the years you spent convincing yourself that enduring was the same as being loved. But Sagittarius, enduring is not your destiny. Awakening is. You are allowed to leave the version of yourself that stayed too long. You are allowed to walk away without needing to justify it. You are allowed to mourn without shame. And above all, you are allowed to begin again. Even if the world hasn't noticed you ended something. No one else has to understand. No one else has to grieve it with you. But you do have to choose. Will you keep living half-rooted in a story that no longer includes your name? Or will you write a new one, starting with the words, I deserve to be whole again? Because wholeness, dear Sagittarius, has been waiting patiently in the quiet. Not to fix you, but to welcome you back. Gate 3 Love that sees the soul, not the story. Sagittarius, you've always been a seeker, not just of places but of people. Somewhere deep within you lives the hope that there is someone out there who doesn't just understand your words but hears your silence. Someone who doesn't need to tame your wildness but joins you in it. Someone whose eyes feel like a home you've known before, perhaps in another lifetime. But if you're honest, love has not always felt like that. More often than not, it felt like a contract, silent expectations, conditions in disguise. You gave and gave, hoping someone would see the real you beneath the strength, beneath the laughter, beneath the independence you've become so good at wearing. You stayed loyal even when the connection no longer mirrored your truth, believing that your capacity to understand would eventually lead to being understood. But it didn't. And there were moments, quiet, sacred moments, when you whispered to yourself, maybe I'm too much. Or maybe I want too much. Or maybe I'm just meant to walk alone. And yet, even in your solitude, the longing remained. Not for just romance, but for resonance. Not for someone to complete you, but to reflect you. And Sagittarius, the truth is, you have never been too much. You have simply outgrown love that couldn't meet your depth. The ache you felt wasn't desperation, it was remembrance. The memory of a kind of love that didn't make you choose between freedom and intimacy. The kind that doesn't dim your light, but drinks it in. The kind that doesn't demand you abandon yourself in order to be close, but celebrates your wholeness because of it. And now that you've shed the illusions, released the weight, mourned what needed to end, your soul is finally open in a new way. You're beginning to understand that soul love cannot be rushed. It doesn't appear just because you want it. It appears when you've become ready to receive it, not as a rescuer, not as an escape, but as a mirror to how far you've come. You may not have met this person yet. Or maybe you have and it wasn't the right time. Maybe they came in a form you didn't recognize because you were still healing. Or maybe they came to wake you up, not to stay. Whatever your story, know this. The universe never wastes your longing. Every ache was a doorway. Every heartbreak a clearing. Every silent prayer a thread that wove your soul closer to alignment. And when soul love arrives, it does not rush you. Sees you. Not for your mask, but for your meaning. It touches the places that never learned to speak. It shows up not in grand declarations, but in small sacred moments. When someone sits with your shadows without flinching. When someone doesn't try to fix your silence, but simply stays. When you feel safe, not because nothing can go wrong, but because even if it does, you know you won't lose yourself again. That is soul love. And Sagittarius, you are ready. Not because you've perfected yourself, but because you've remembered yourself. Because now when love comes, it will not find someone waiting to be saved, but someone already walking in wholeness. The truth is, you no longer need love in the way you once did. And that's what makes you ready for the kind of love that lasts. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. And if you're still waiting, please trust this. Soul connections are not delayed. They are prepared. Your next great love story may not look like a movie. It may arrive in a coffee shop, through a mutual friend, or during a season when you least expect it. But you'll know it not by how loudly it enters, but by how gently it lets you be fully yourself. You won't have to chase. You won't have to shrink. You won't have to wonder. And most of all, you won't lose yourself this time. Because now you have become the home you were always seeking in someone else. And in becoming that, love will no longer feel like something you fall into. It will feel like something you rise with. Gate for the silent awakening and the return to self. Sagittarius, you've always believed there was more. More beyond the horizon. More beyond the rules. More beyond the pain. And even when the world tried to convince you to settle, to shrink your wonder, to stay small, you couldn't. Not truly. Because deep inside, your soul remembered. I came here to wake up. But awakening, dear Sagittarius, isn't always a blazing sunrise. Sometimes it comes softly, through exhaustion, through a strange peace after the storm, through a silence that no longer feels empty but sacred. You have carried so much. Wounds that weren't yours. Expectations that never fit. Dreams that slowly became cages. And still you kept going. But lately something is shifting. You no longer crave noise. You no longer run toward distractions. Something in you has grown still, so still that you can finally hear your own breath again. This is the moment of return. Not to a place, but to yourself. You're realizing now that healing doesn't require a miracle. It doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks for honesty. The kind of honesty that says, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of performing strength while quietly crumbling. I'm tired of waiting to be chosen when I was always meant to choose myself. And in that moment, something profound happens. The grief you thought would break you begins to free you. You stop apologizing for your softness. You stop hiding your depth. You begin to see that your tears were not signs of weakness, but rivers that cleared the path. You realize the too much you were told to tone down. Your passion, your truth, your hunger for more was never a flaw. It was your essence. It was your fire. And now that fire is returning, not to burn the world down, but to light the way home. And Sagittarius, home was never out there. It was never a person, a career, or a destiny waiting to be earned. Home was always your inner space. Your quiet knowing, your sacred flame, your unapologetic truth. This is what awakening feels like. Not a loud revelation, but a whisper of self-love that finally feels believable. You wake up one day and realize you don't need to be healed to be whole. You don't need someone else to see you before you feel seen. You don't need the pain to vanish. You just need it to have a place. And strangely, when you give it that space, it softens. It no longer rules you. It no longer haunts your joy. It just sits beside you as a reminder of how far you've come. This is the new you. Not hardened but refined. Not guarded but wise. Not distant but discerning. You still believe in light, but now you know where it lives. And when others see you now, they'll wonder what's changed. They may ask what happened. You won't always have the words, but you'll feel it, this quiet strength inside you. The rootedness, the clarity, the compassion. You no longer need to prove you've survived. You're too busy living. So breathe, Sagittarius. The worst has passed. Not because life won't challenge you again, but because you've remembered how to meet those challenges without losing yourself. And if, in this moment, there is still a part of you unsure whether you deserve this peace, this wholeness, this light, just place your hand over your heart and whisper gently, I don't need to go back. I don't need to know the whole path. I just need to believe that I am allowed to arrive here, as I am, because you have. And the universe sees you. Conclusion, the path has always been you. Sagittarius, if you've listened this far, you already know. This wasn't just a message, it was a mirror. A mirror to all the parts of you that have longed to be seen, not for what you've accomplished, not for who you've tried to become, but simply for who you are beneath it all. You've walked through fire. You've endured the quiet endings, the hidden heartbreaks, the moments when no one clapped for your growth. And still you chose to rise. Not perfectly, not always gracefully, but truthfully. And that truth, Sagittarius, is your light. This journey has never been about becoming someone else. It's always been about unbecoming everything you were told you had to be, so you could finally return to yourself. The wild, wise, tender soul who came here not to fit in but to expand. Not to perform but to awaken. Not to be loved for a version of you but to be loved as you are. So now, as you stand at the edge of this new chapter, I won't ask you to make a plan. I won't tell you to be fearless. I will simply ask you to pause, to place your hand on your heart and feel what is already true. You are no longer lost. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer broken. You are home. Not in a place, not in a person, but in your own presence. And from this place, love will find you differently. Purpose will flow through you freely. Peace will visit more often. Not because life becomes easier, but because you have become more real. And realness, Sagittarius, is your greatest gift to this world. So if this message touched something in you, if it felt like your soul exhaled for the first time in a long while, then let it be known. Like this video, share it with someone who's searching. Subscribe to the Zodiac Wisdom channel, not just to support the message, but as a declaration to the universe. I am ready. I choose me. I choose light. I choose the path that always leads me back to truth. And may that truth never leave you again. You are seen. You are loved. You are remembered. And above all else, you are finally free.